Welcome to Fatherhood Unity Month. My name is Calvin Mann. I am your host, president and founder of Good Fathers Only and Encourage Me, I'm Young. Today, we're hosting a town hall on fatherhood solutions. Our guest today will be John Miles of the Fatherhood Connection. Also, my friend and brother, Andrei, Dr. Andrei, I call him doctor for a reason, Andrei Nichols. And also on board is Melvin Dakers, the father, advocate, friend, Good Fathers Only member, right along with everybody else. Welcome. I want to get right into this, guys, because I know a lot of people might not ever really get to have this much of a conversation when it comes to fatherhood solutions. And so, hold on one second. Let me get this. Yeah. So today, the reason for this call, a few other men will be jumping on. The reason for this town hall is really to get to things for fathers, right? Over the years, we've been watching fathers literally deteriorate, die from all kind of illnesses because they didn't do what they were supposed to do, not be appreciated, don't get their flowers. People have an opinion, right? Like we're just not human at all, that we should just be this way and that's it. And right until you have your issue. I found that a lot of fathers have the philosophy that, I just, is this is it. I provide, that's it, right off into the sunset. Whatever I do for myself, whatever the case may be, and that's it. Then they find themselves in a situation where they wake up and they realize, well, wait a minute, not a lot of people really care. Not a lot of people are really having these conversations. And so for us, Good Fathers Only was invented in 2008 for us to celebrate fatherhood, us to validate fatherhood, to appreciate each other, right? I always wanted to work with men who were fathers, right? And that's who I dealt with, men who were good fathers. And then I realized along the way that there were a lot of fathers who wasn't valued. And therefore they did a lot of things and they weren't valued. And so I wanted to have this discussion. I call myself a solutionist because I can't think problem. For me is, if I'm in a room, what's the solution? Welcome aboard, Brother Kelly. So
what's going on, good brother?
You got it. So I really couldn't really get into the mindset of problems. I've always, lately, it's just really been solution. So I call myself a solutionist, the encourager, whatever you want to do, it's for you. But this conversation is about solutions. So I want to start because Andrei recently discovered some. So we going right into this conversation about medical. Why is it important, right? Men, a few years ago, Melvin, remember, we were working with another agency trying to celebrate fatherhood during the fatherhood walk, talking about prostate and colon cancer, right? And people, we walking and hooting and hollering, and nobody really, they drove by, hey, fatherhood, like, hey, like it was, right? And we did this for years, right? And so we talked about prostate and colon cancer. So that brings us to kick this off about our medical, which is the most important piece. My friend and brother, Andrei, who recently discovered. So Andrei, I'm gonna let you tell the story and then we're gonna move into some questions.
All right, well, foremost, Calvin, I just want to thank you and applaud, your efforts in fatherhood, as well as helping our youth. Your heart is huge, and everything that you do is with excellence and it's immaculate work. So I just wanted to say this for you right now, because there's not many Calvin Mans out there like that. So just hats off and love you.
Love you too, man. Thank you.
for as Calvin noted, recently I learned that I had colon cancer. Um, I am cancer free now. There was no spread, and it was removed, no detection of it. But what's most traumatizing, I have to admit from the experience, is that I had lived a fairly healthy life up until recently knowing, I should say. And the stage in which I had colon cancer, it was stage 2A. Now that's shy of requiring chemotherapy, but at the same time, what's really so mesmerizing by it is that in order for it to matriculate to a stage 2A, that takes between 8 and 10 years. And so literally having lived, I guess you could say, a normal, healthy life, um, in shape and things of that, I have had cancer for the last 8 to 10 years and did not know it. And so it brought about a lot of questions from a medical standpoint of how did this happen and what do I need to do moving forward. And how this ties into fatherhood is that, is as well as family, is that now I am having to required to have certain conversations with my sons. My oldest is 22. And although at that age you're relatively carefree, you eat McDonald's and Burger King and your Popeyes, you're not thinking about the effects that it's having on your body. But at the same time, if what's going on with me is genetically related, there are some things that he needs to know about his family, his lineage, as well as how to take care of his body right now so he doesn't have to experience what I did. And I'm at the age of 45. And so to have colon cancer between the ages of uh, uh, 37 to 45 was relatively young. And it brings up a few things that we need to have conversations in our homes about, and that is our diet. Uh, it wasn't until my late 30s until I really learned about food and how to eat. Everything from nutritional value, from calories to fiber, protein, and all these things that we have to learn about what's going in our body so that we can optimize our food and eat it for energy. And it's a sad commentary, but we will sacrifice nutritional value for taste, you know. But as we get older, we have to learn that eating is all about providing energy. But this is a message that needs to take place in the home, and it needs to be taking place from a man's perspective as well. Because although we find that most women are those who are cooking in the home, it doesn't mean that things aren't taking place with a man's body. That doesn't have a bearing or effect on the entire family as well. And so we have to make sure that we engage in these conversations with our families to keep them healthy. And that is a part of protecting our family as well, making sure that these conversations are happening so that we can stay on top of things and address an issue before it becomes a greater problem, you know. And so I'm glad that I'm in a healthy state right now. I have made some changes, of course, because I'm trying to stick around this bad boy, you know. But most importantly, I want my sons to be able to learn through me and make better choices, and for them to pass that information on to their children as well, because that's what legacy is all about.
And see that right there, right, is the reason why I've been after you for years, and right, and that's why I was like, Dre, I really need you involved, because now more than ever, that being a component of good fathers, we need to really be spreading that message. That message really needs to be spread amongst fathers, families, like you said. And because of the example and the information that you have and how you go at information, I I really feel that this is an opportunity for us all to learn from you, right? Because you don't just go at, like, you guys don't know this guy. I've known this guy for years. Like, one of my first events, we were side by side at Cody High School, right? And I wasn't nowhere near, right? I'm talking about, I come to the microphone, I was a mess. And I wasn't nowhere near where I am today. Like, I was so far away, but I was so passionate about stopping murder. And I remember, you know, him stepping up and showing me, and he has been showing me for years. And but this is an opportunity that is very, very huge and important to thousands and thousands of fathers who may not know, and you having that information. So in that same context, Andre, what is the first thing that you really learned about diet that you shifted on? What was that first thing that you shifted on after you know?
You know what? This might sound elementary and simple, but one is the entree in itself. And if you take a look at it, we usually there's a meat that's the entree, and then the sides are vegetables. And one of the things that has shifted with me now, besides the elimination of some meats, and I'll tell you, for my experience, it has been pork and red meat, based off of the acidity and cholesterol. Um, but even taking a look at the dynamic of a meat in itself, we typically see it as the entree. And even for those who are consuming those things, you can minimize what it is that you consume on the plate in itself. Whereas, say, the vegetable is the primary thing, and the meat is used to supplement, or the meat is there to be the side. But it's just funny how we come up and it's always the meat is the entree. And so that's more of a paradigm shift than it is a food thing. Also, what I've been just learning, and please know that I'm still learning. This experience for me is still relatively new. I'm only in 4 weeks into my recovery right now, so I still have another 3 to 4 to go. But at the same moment, I've been forced to reckon with so much in such a short-lived period of time. But another is just taking a look at what it is that we consume. I asked a friend of mine, and it was by no means to characterize or to cast judgment or anything like that. It was out of curiosity. And it was, do you know how many calories per day that you eat? And do you know how much you actually need? And most people are unfamiliar with that. You know, for men, um, ages between 40, 45, uh, we burn right at about 2,500 naturally on the day. Many consume between 2,500 and 3,000. And so it's just important to know from a nutritional standpoint, if I'm looking to lose weight, of course, I want to consume less calories than I'm actually burning. It just kind of makes sense mathematically, you know, but it's getting into those numbers that we really get into tune to what's going on with my body and beginning to see food again as energy instead of eating to be full and eating for taste, you know? So these are some things that I'm looking forward to passing on. I am going to be starting a foundation, as a matter of fact, because I want to be high on early detection. Um, if it wasn't for the experience that I had from pains and things of that, I would have never known that I had colon cancer. Um, and my father, who is actually living with prostate cancer as we speak, I still did not have it on my schedule to get a colonoscopy. And so we have to stay on top of scheduling as far as knowing what's going on with us. And many insurance companies don't pick up the tab until the age of 45, but it can be requested before then. And if there's cancers in your family, any type, colon, prostate, you name it, you need to get checked out. And again, address the issue before it becomes a greater problem, you know. But these are all little nuances that I've been learning just in a short period of time that I'm looking forward just to pass on the message and making sure that people live a healthy life and around for their family and their kids and passing on this information accordingly.
So I got a beautiful announcement, and then I'll move, you know, on to you guys who got questions. Um, Today is the 29th day, no meat for me, and I've been right at, thank you, I've been right at 2,000 or less, right? And my meals have been like breakfast will be a banana, uh, 2 nectarines. I make sure I get my 5 servings of fruit. You know what I mean? I'm even pulling off the cheese, right? More and more as we go. I'm pulling off the different pastas, right? Although I had the veggie pasta, now I'm trying to pull off the pasta, right? I might have that wheat bread with the Beyond Burger or the Beyond Dog, but that's maybe once a week, maybe if that. Um, I have incorporated fish, but even that, right, is being spread out, and so I've been falling under, and I feel great. I look great. I got wake up with a lot more. I'm a lot more happier. I make sure I take my Nugenics to make sure that I get my testosterone build, so I can keep up. Whenever I do can get back to working out or whatever, I'll have the energy. But my walking and things like that. So I'm feeling really good across the board. But I agree with you. I started getting testing for prostate cancer when I was 30. See, when I was young, me and my dad was putting up paneling at a church member's house, and my dad just erupted with blood. He had me driving to a clinic, and I drove him to a clinic, and that was the incident that I kept in my head. That when the prostate cancer conversation came along, that automatically put myself in at 30. So I started at 30. My last checkup, I was good. So I'm due for another checkup sometime this year. I'll be 55. Whatever they ask me to do, I will consider it. But right now, I haven't had anything. So that's been my thing. Anybody got any questions in the group for Andre? Anybody got anything they'd like to add to this conversation? Because what he just said is very, very important, as how we have to go at our medical as fathers. We really got to take a good care of ourselves. So finding the right doctor, knowing who you're going to, and building a relationship with that doctor is important. So go ahead.
Hey, Cal, I just wanted to say, first of all, hats off to Andre. And one of the things I think we have to understand and recognize is that not only do we need to go to the doctor, we need to understand and know our body, because the doctor sometimes give information that's inaccurate because he don't know what's going on, and so they misdiagnose us sometimes 2, 3, 4 years before they realize they got it wrong. And so if you know something is wrong and they're telling you you are okay, seek a second opinion.
Hey, Calvin, I want to speak on what that young man just spoke on right there, and thank you, because what you just talked about, I experienced just a few months back. Now, keep in mind, when I went through this experience, COVID's taking place, and so the hospitals are stressed, and I end up having to have these quote unquote virtual visits. Well, if someone can't see you physically, what they're doing is just writing you a prescription. I went through 4 different physicians before I got to the one that actually said this is chronic, and if a medicine's not working, you need surgery. But the 4 prior to that had all wrote me a prescription. Literally, all wrote me a prescription. Let's do this for 10 days and see what happened. And so it goes to show that we have to be a lot more proactive when learning what's going on with our own bodies, as well as even being medically inclined. There's some basic research that you can do just to say, okay, here are the symptoms that I'm experiencing. At least let me put these questions together when I ask this physician, so that they're not so quick to just write you a prescription. It's like, no, because I'm going back to one of the doctors. She tried to tell me that it was based off of a ginger pill that I was taking. Because remember, when COVID first hit, everybody was up on the tea and the ginger. And so I was loading up on that bad boy. And so what she told me was, oh, well, why don't you scale back on the ginger pill? Think about that. The ginger pill. I end up having colon cancer, and she tells me it's the goddamn ginger pill. So, so thank you for sharing that right there, because that is so important. We got to know what's going on with our own bodies and got to know what questions to ask.